The auditorium fell dead silent when Principal Davidson pointed directly at her and announced to 150 parents, "Mrs. Henderson represents everything outdated about our education system." 27 years of dedicated teaching reduced to a punchline while parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But what he didn't know was that 3 of those parents had already started a group text that would end his career within 2 weeks. Before I tell you exactly how one parent-teacher conference became the most satisfying takedown in education history, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happened next proves that sometimes the best revenge comes from the people who know your true worth. I'm Margaret Henderson, 52, veteran third-grade teacher at Riverside Elementary. For 27 years, I'd watched children learn to read, solve their first math problems, discover they were capable of more than they imagined. I'd stayed late for struggling students, spent my own money on classroom supplies, and maintained the highest reading scores in the district. Principal Davidson arrived 6 months ago with his MBA and his mission to modernize education through data-driven methodologies. He scheduled mandatory meetings about optimizing learning outcomes and leveraging technology solutions. Most teachers rolled their eyes and continued teaching. I made the mistake of asking questions. The ambush happened during spring parent conferences. Davidson announced a special session where teachers would present their philosophies to assembled parents. What he didn't mention was that he'd be providing commentary. I stood before 150 parents, many whose children I'd taught, some whose older siblings I'd guided through those crucial early years. I began explaining my literacy program, how I assessed each child individually, adapted lessons to different learning styles. "This is exactly what I was telling you about," Davidson interrupted, gesturing dismissively. "Outdated, inflexible, resistant to change." He turned to the audience like a prosecutor addressing a jury. "Mrs. Henderson represents everything that's wrong with traditional education. Individual attention doesn't scale. Data shows standardized approaches deliver consistent results." The room temperature seemed to drop. I watched parents' faces change from polite attention to uncomfortable recognition of what was happening. Sarah Mitchell, whose daughter struggled with dyslexia until my specialized reading program helped her flourish, looked horrified. Tom Bradley, whose son I'd guided through severe anxiety, shook his head slowly. "We need teachers who embrace innovation," Davidson continued, "not ones clinging to methods from the last century." He smiled that practiced administrator smile. "Questions about Mrs. Henderson's approach?" Nobody raised a hand. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Davidson dismissed everyone with promises of exciting changes ahead. I packed my materials with trembling fingers, 27 years of credibility destroyed in 20 minutes. As parents filed out, several stopped to speak with me quietly. "He's wrong," Sarah whispered. "Emma still talks about how you saved her reading?" Tom simply squeezed my shoulder and said, "This isn't over." What I didn't know was that Tom Bradley was a litigation attorney. Sarah Mitchell ran the district's largest parent advocacy group, and Lisa Chen, whose twins I'd helped through their parents' divorce, worked in communications for the city government. Within an hour of that meeting, a group text was circulating among parents. "Did everyone just witness what I think we witnessed?" By midnight, 43 parents had joined the conversation. By morning, they had a plan. The next day, formal complaints were filed with the school board, not about teaching methods or educational philosophy, but about workplace harassment, public humiliation, and hostile administration. Tom Bradley had recorded Davidson's presentation on his phone, which was entirely legal since it was a public meeting. The parents didn't stop there. They organized a petition supporting my teaching methods, signed by 127 families. They gathered testimony from former students, now in high school, about how my classroom had shaped their love of learning. They compiled data showing my students' long-term academic success compared to district averages. Lisa Chen used her media contacts to share the story. Veteran teacher humiliated in front of parents became a local news story that went viral on social media. The video of Davidson's presentation was shared thousands of times, with comments from educators nationwide condemning his approach. Within a week, the school board called an emergency meeting. Davidson sat stiffly as parent after parent spoke about my impact on their children. The board voted unanimously to censure him for unprofessional conduct and require administrative training. But the parents weren't finished. They demanded his removal and threatened to organize against board members who didn't act. When Davidson tried to retaliate by placing me on administrative leave, the parents pulled their children from school in protest. Attendance dropped 40% in one day. The district couldn't function with half its students absent. Davidson was forced to resign to pursue other opportunities. The board offered me his position as interim principal, which I declined. I wanted to stay in my classroom, where I belonged. 2 months later, I received the district's Teacher Excellence Award, nominated by parents and voted on by my peers. At the ceremony, Tom Bradley spoke about how education works best when teachers are trusted and supported, not torn down by administrators who mistake authority for leadership. Davidson's LinkedIn shows he's now working in corporate training. The parents occasionally send me updates when his posts about educational innovation appear in their feeds. He never learned that innovation means building on what works, not destroying it for the sake of change. 27 years of teaching taught me that the best lessons often come from unexpected sources. That night in the auditorium, I learned something invaluable. When you've spent decades earning people's respect through genuine care and competence, that respect becomes your shield against those who mistake position for power. Sometimes revenge isn't something you plan or execute. Sometimes it's simply standing still while good people rally around the truth they've witnessed firsthand. The parents didn't just defend me that night. They defended every teacher who's ever been dismissed by administrators who've forgotten what education actually means.